Welcome back to the Healing Blueprint for Arthritis. We're going to talk about reducing inflammation today. And look, I have a wonderful pH food chart that we've created here. And this is something that's so valuable, so important. And you're welcome to message us if you would like a copy of this. Just message below. Just say, hey, I'd love a copy of that pH food chart. But I'm going to go through that right now, right here with you, so you can have an understanding of the role of pH and inflammation within the body. Now, before I do, I want you to understand arthritis, arthro, joint, itis, inflammation. Arthritis is an inflammatory condition. Discitis, disc, itis, inflammation is an inflammatory disc condition. Any of the arthritic or degenerative conditions, including degenerative disc disease or degenerative disc conditions, are inflammatory in nature. What that means is you have an uncontrolled inflammatory process within your body that is producing the pain and the degenerative process that is accumulated over time and is the result of the condition that you're now experiencing. Now, the reason I wanted to share this with you, and I want you to understand a bit more about inflammation, is I want to give you the reason and the motivation to make the changes I'm about to talk about before I do that. Because I could simply say, here, take this, do that, job done. And that should be enough. But I know from clinical experience, that's simply not the case. I have given out hundreds, thousands of lifestyle changes, and people who are suffering with pain and limited in their ability to function, including how they can think and how they can perform, don't always find it easy to make the changes that are necessary. I want to acknowledge that right now, that what I'm suggesting throughout these series of videos isn't effortless by any stretch. And there are limitations to what you can do, how much you can manage. So take time throughout all these videos to do what you can do in the way that you can do. And I recognize that. But inflammation, I want to share a bit more about that. Firstly, most people are aware of inflammation, and they're aware of the itis word, arthritis, because you've had tonsillitis, inflammation of your tonsils, appendicitis, inflammation of the appendix, and what that means is you're aware of the inflammatory process that happens in the body. But in relation to understanding inflammation itself, there are two forms of inflammation: systemic and local. So if I fall over and I twist my wrist and it swells up like a balloon, it's inflamed. That swelling is inflammatory, but it is local and it's a healing response. When it is global, meaning systemic all over the body, it's no longer a healing response, it's an uncontrolled response, and it's creating damage and progressing irritation within the body. So your job is to control and limit the systemic inflammation and facilitate and experience local inflammation for healing, repair and regeneration. But most people with arthritic or degenerative conditions are experiencing a systemic inflammation where the body has uncontrolled inflammation and it's coursing in and through the body. And to restore that, there are a number of things that you can do. You can take your anti-inflammatory medication, your pain-killing medication, but that's not natural and that's not sustainable, and that's not going to resolve the underlying cause of the inflammation. Now, what does, we'll talk about that in just one moment, I want to give one other insight into relation to controlling the inflammatory process, which is managing your pH. And to do that, I want you to think about if you've ever owned a swimming pool, or a fish tank for that matter. What you do is, and even if you haven't owned one, you'll know that if you do nothing with a swimming pool over the winter period, it goes green. And the reason is you're not balancing the pH of the pool to put it into an environment that is sustainable for healthy living organisms to operate the way that they're meant to. So what happens for those people who haven't had swimming pools, those who have will know, you dip a little container in there, you bring out the water, you drop a tablet in and it changes to the colour that represents pH. And that's why we have on this chart here the coloration that represents pH. Okay, so that is the acidity. And acidity is another word for inflammation in the body, the acidity or inflammation of an environment, in this case a pool. And if your pool is the wrong pH, you add a chemical to it to buffer or to normalise that pH. Well, the body's smart, it can do that independently of you. It has an innate intelligence, an inborn wisdom. The same intelligence that causes your heart to beat without you thinking about it, that causes a cut to heal without your involvement, actually regulates your pH. And what most of us do is lead an acidic lifestyle. So the pH of the body should be 7.35 to 7.45. And alkaline is 14, acid is 0, neutral, which is water, should be 7. and your pH is therefore slightly alkaline in your body. And if you move towards acidity or inflammation, then your body starts to produce those inflammatory or degenerative changes, and we will need to have an alkaline life. Our alkaline environment for a part of our lifestyle. And what actually happens within the body takes calcium from bone, deposits it into blood to regulate the pH. So part of arthritis is a pH regulatory process because of the lifestyle choices that you're making. Now, I go through that in detail at other points in time in other programs that I've done, and certainly here within consultations, so people can know and understand it. But what I want you to know is arthritis is an acidic lifestyle, a pro-inflammatory process that needs to be buffered or alkalized. And what you can simply do to begin that process to normalize your pH, to reduce the acid, therefore limit the inflammation, and therefore create healing, repair, and regeneration, is pretty simple. Eliminate pro-acidic, pro-inflammatory, and therefore pro-arthritic foods. And that is why I provide this exceedingly detailed introduction to what I'm going to suggest you do, because we're going to eliminate the foods that are pro-inflammatory by saying that means no fast food, no junk food, no takeout, no processed or refined food, no sugars, no gluten, no dairy, no red meat, no chocolate, limit the tea, coffee and alcohol, and that means go back to the diet that your grandparents would have eaten, as close to the natural state as possible. Plenty of vegetables, fruits, whole foods, things that grow in the garden or are picked from a tree that you make yourself in a traditional old-fashioned way. You do that, you reduce inflammation. You reduce inflammation, you limit the pain. And the healing that takes place as a byproduct is the body's natural self-healing, self-regulating, self-organising processes so that you can find your own personal arthritis solution. I know it's a lot to ask, and if you need more detail, please reach out to me. You have the details throughout this program on how you can be helped, how we can serve you, how we can add value to make clear that you can do this process. We're here for you. But the arthritis solution means some level of accountability, some change process. But when you do, you will feel a world of improvement. Thank you.